top of the world with Times Network. And you're watching Times Now.
The Newshour Special Edition.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. From the biggest global stage, Prime Minister Modi has sent the strongest message. Addressing the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly, Prime Minister Modi delivered a power-packed speech. From calling out terrorism to putting China on notice to highlighting how India's growth is directly proportional to world's growth. The Prime Minister also silenced the doubters' lobby by giving a lesson on democracy from the global podium. He asserted that democracy can and has delivered. Calling India the mother of democracies, the Prime Minister highlighted that it was diversity of India that has made it stand apart from other countries. And he also pointed out to his own example, saying that a boy who served tea on railway platforms today is delivering the fourth address at the United Nations General Assembly. Listen in to the Prime Minister.
जब भारतीयों की प्रगति होती है तो विश्व के विकास को भी गति मिलती है. When India grows, the world grows. When India reforms, the world transforms. मैं उस देश का प्रतिनिधित्व कर रहा हूं जिसे मदर ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी का गौरव हासिल है. हमारी विविधता हमारे सशक्त लोकतंत्र की पहचान है और मैं अपने अनुभव से कह रहा हूं, यस, डेमोक्रेसी कैन डिलीवर. यस, डेमोक्रेसी हैज डिलीवर्ड. रिग्रेसिव थिंकिंग के साथ जो देश आतंकवाद का पॉलिटिकल टूल के रूप में इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं, उन्हें ये समझना होगा कि आतंकवाद उनके लिए भी उतना ही बड़ा खतरा है. ये सुनिश्चित किया जाना बहुत जरूरी है कि अफगानिस्तान की धरती का इस्तेमाल आतंकवाद फैलाने और आतंकी हमलों के लिए न हो. हमारे समंदर भी हमारी साझी विरासत है. इसलिए हमें ये ध्यान रखना होगा कि ओशन रिसोर्सेज को हम यूज करें, एब्यूज नहीं.
Going across to my colleague Nikunj Garg, Executive Editor, Times Now, joining me live from New York, outside just where the Prime Minister delivered his speech, his fourth address at the UNGA. Nikunj, the Prime Minister made a very well-crafted address, the importance of which will be lost on nobody. The messages were not just to the world community, to the superpowers in the world, but there were messages for everybody, from China to Pakistan to some people back home in India. How do you see the Prime Minister's message?
Well, Navika, the fact is that Prime Minister was speaking as the head of the state of the largest democracy representing 1.3 billion people, a fact that he himself specifically messaged. It is quite clearly that in these times when there are challenges to the democratic order, particularly in the region that we are, consequent to the rise of Taliban government, which the world considers to be a complete puppet of Pakistan and consequently backed by China, none of which is truly a a democracy, unlike India. Prime Minister obviously had almost no choice. He had to tell the world order that, look here, democracies traditionally may be a concept that would that have come under scanner at all times in terms of deliverables. Many scholars have raised questions about the fact of democracy's capacity to deliver to the last man, something that he himself is trying to change very in a very concerted fashion and manner. But he said that there always, what he's wanting to say, that there will always be a much better choice, even in terms of deliveries to the common man from authoritarian regimes. So he was trying to build a contrast here, and it is not lost on anybody that which are the authoritarian regimes that he is hinting at. You don't have to take names of the other nations, particularly when it is none of your business as to which style of governance they follow. However, since he is the leader of the democratic world in the sense of representing the largest chunk of humanity, largest tranche of humanity under a democratic order, he has to speak out when the democratic order is challenged, or when there are issues that directly try to target the democratic order, just as the rise of Islamist Taliban in our immediate neighborhood. As I've been saying
Nikunj, I have to interrupt you there, because we are getting information, not just that the visuals on your screen, ladies and gentlemen, is of the Prime Minister leaving for the airport from the UN headquarters in New York. Those are visuals, and there were Indian diaspora members who were there present outside the UNGA. The Prime Minister loves to go with these people. He met them, and information coming in, and these are pictures coming in. The Prime Minister is bringing home with him 157 artifacts. These artifacts are being repatriated to India. Many of these artifacts went out of India and have deep cultural and religious value. According to the information and the statement that's been put out by the Prime Minister's office, they say while half of the artifacts, 71 of these 157, are cultural, the other half consists of figurines which relate to Hinduism, 60 of these, Buddhism, 16 of these, and Jainism, 9 of these. These are the visuals of those artifacts that the Prime Minister is going to be bringing home with himself in the Prime Minister's special aircraft. There are at least 10 or 15 pictures that we have, and these are pictures of all the details that have been handed over to the Prime Minister about these artifacts. Clearly having an eye for what was Indian, went out of the country, and bringing these artifacts back makes a strong statement, Nikunj, about the Prime Minister's mission there, and the political edge will not be lost at people back home, where there have been controversies regarding to various figurines going out of India in the previous regimes.
Well, Navika, that is for Prime Minister and his party to comment. I'm not particularly privy to when they went out and who's bringing them back. My sense is, in the administration, this is a continuous process, and these processes carry on with or without the same leadership. That is what continuation in administration is all about, according to me. However, they may wish to correct, and they may wish to speak about it. However, one thing I would want to add is that the Prime Minister today spoke from the podium of the world's apex body on the multilateral order, multilateralism, that is the United Nations General Assembly. He made a very strong and that's also quite a sustained pitch from the Indian side that UN needs reform, and he said that the reforms that do not follow the trajectory of the right time get lost with the time itself, and he quoted Chanakya about it. In that sense, my understanding of the situation would be that if the democratic order all over the world, including our country, do not take pot shots at his message about minorities, about democracies, about deliverables in democracies, at this stage, they would only be strengthening the democratic calling of the world, the democratic order of the world. Taking pot shots at Mr. Modi personally and at this juncture will only hit and hurt the democracy. Fighting the ruling dispensation of the day, opposition can continue and should continue to do, in my view, 360 days a year. But 5 days or 10 days or a few days should be left for occasions like these, when the Prime Minister is addressing a larger constituency and trying to ensure that the democratic order and democracies across the world retain their places as the apex of a good governance order, which are capable of delivering to the last man in the mile. And if you vitiate that message at this point in time by taking domestically pot shots at him, I will not say that that is a prudent move. As again, I would go back to the original formulation that opposition has every right to contest the government of the day's claims, but there are certain occasions when that should be avoided.
Absolutely. Well said, Nikunj. Thank you for joining me. There is a time and place for everything. And clearly, when the Prime Minister of the country is addressing the world at the highest podium of the United Nations, clearly the opposition would do well to focus on the message rather than shooting down the messenger. Going across to my panel this evening, joining me tonight, Gaurav Bhatia, National Spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party, Major General G.D. Bakshi, defense expert, Gaurav Bhatia, National Spokesperson of the BJP, sorry for that mistake, R.S.N. Singh, author, Raja Faisal, journalist from Pakistan, and Omar Altaf, senior journalist also from Pakistan. Omar Altaf, message very clear by the Prime Minister while Pakistan continues to sing its age-old song of Kashmir year after year, decade after decade. Here was the Prime Minister telling the world that India is moving forward. There is an India story that the Prime Minister took to the world. There is no Pakistan. There is no Pakistan story, and that's why Raja Faisal, the fact is that Pakistan is stuck like an old record only talking about Kashmir, when actually you should be looking at humanitarian issues both in Afghanistan and Pakistan.
And Navika, thank you very much for inviting me in your show. And I think your Prime Minister talking about democracy, it doesn't make sense anyway. Why? Because if you look at your own country, within your own country, there are lots of problems. The way you are governed in your country. Assam is an example, the recent one.
Well, the line obviously in India doesn't connect people who don't tend to say the right thing. Gaurav Bhatia, you think we need to take a lesson on democracy from Pakistan?
You know, in the scheme of things, seeing this historic trip of the Prime Minister to the US, the Quad Summit, his meeting with the US President Joe Biden, as well as Kamala Harris, and after that, this inspiring speech from the Prime Minister at the world's largest podium itself is commendable. And I'm sure that every citizen, not just of India, but worldwide, who's witnessed this historic speech, could see how he gave a direction to the United Nations itself, reminding United Nations the purpose and the objective for which it was formed. And I think it takes a lot of courage. A person who has a backing of 135 crore Indians could only do this, Navika. Now, coming to the other highlights, we'll come to Pakistan. It's a very insignificant player, but 3-4 things are very important. First of all, the importance of democracy. And in today's world, why is it so important? Because, see, he spoke about maritime issues, and the seas belong to every country because of the international trade ramifications that are involved. And he was referring to countries like China, which have an expansionist approach. And therefore, it was very important that we raise it on the United Nations General Assembly Forum. Second, the issue of terrorism. If there is one leader in the world who has been raising this issue of cross-border terrorism, it has been Narendra Modi ji. And again, very effectively, he raised it. And in this trip itself, Navika, we should not forget, even Kamala Harris, as the Vice President of the US, reaffirmed what India said, that India has been a victim of cross-border terrorism and that Pakistan needs to be monitored for their support to terrorist organizations. That's the highlight of the trip. Third, You know, the very fact that he spoke about the Afghan crisis itself, it is reminding the world that we have faith in democracy, and such should be the behavior even in Afghanistan, where citizens are being ill-treated and their human rights are being violated. Now, panelists from Pakistan talking about democracy, for him I only have one line to say. Mister, check your history. In 75 years of independence, India has always been democratic, whereas for 50% of the time, 35 years of your independence, there has been dictatorial rule. Prime Minister of your country has been hanged. Chief Justice has been replaced. Yours is a banana republic. That is why you are rightly called.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now get a reply from me.
Raja
Yeah,
Faisal, I know you want to come in, but I just want to say one thing, and this is a fact.
I want to just
this is a fact, Raja Faisal, and the fact is, Pakistan's biggest export, Pakistan's biggest export is export of terror, and India exports vaccines.
Navika,
India exports vaccines. You export terror,
Navika,
and that is the story of Pakistan.
Navika, if you just want me to be a spectator only, then I can very well watch your program on your instructions, and I don't need to be in your program.
I can bet it would be a very learning experience.
So allow me to reply.
Watching my show will be good. Would be good. You'll get a lot of information on how India works.
Not
a bad idea.
You know what? I'm the program and support the Taliban. A female anchor was removed. So it would be a very learning experience for you. Look at Navika. She's making us proud. That doesn't happen in Pakistan and Taliban.
Then you don't know about Pakistan. Then you don't know about Afghanistan, right?
Imran
and I know about India.
No,
you talked about democracy. Let me highlight you of India's democracies. The 75 years you were talking about. Let me highlight it for you. What kind of democracy you've been running? This was the very democracy that actually got you Golden Temple kind of incidents happening in India. It was the very democracy. Now let me finish. You stop.
People destroy Gurudwara.
You stop now. Let me finish.
No, why?
Raja Faisal, you know, you want to debate on facts and knowledge. Let me ask you three questions. It's a quiz. Let me ask you three questions on my show. The world is watching, not just people in India, but people in Pakistan are watching. So just answer to me three questions. Where was Osama bin Laden found? Where was Osama bin Laden found?
Face of democracy
you don't want to answer? Where was Osama bin Laden found? Where was Osama bin Laden found?
You would turn my voice down because the courage of listening
your voice is fully on.
In India.
I'm asking you a question. Osama bin Laden कहाँ मिला था? Abbottabad, Pakistan में है या नहीं?
In Pakistan.
है या नहीं? Okay. Question number 2. Salahuddin, जिनको आप कहते हैं हुजूर सलाहुद्दीन साहब, ये कहाँ रहते हैं?
We found Kulbhushan Jadhav.
ये कहाँ रहते
हैं? And there are a number of
Hafiz
people who were associating themselves with India.
Hafiz Saeed कहाँ रहते हैं?
You were investing terror in Pakistan, weren't you? You were the biggest investors of terrorism in the region. You were being hegemonic. And earlier you were talking about
कुलभूषण यादव का तो आप मंजर देख चुके हैं इंटरनेशनल कोर्ट ऑफ जस्टिस में आप पढ़ चुके हैं कुलभूषण यादव का पूरा चैप्टर. आप मुझे बता दीजिए अजमल कसाब कहां से आया था?
तो दुनिया everyone knows about OBL as well. Why you keep on repeating it? How many times we have
repeating it?
Navika,
so export of terror versus export of vaccines. That is the difference between you and us.
If you are not giving me reply on Gujarat riots, on Golden Temple, on Kashmir, on Assam, then why do you expect me to reply?
Oh, that was our problem. We sorted it out.
You reply.
You tell us why do you export terror from there? General G.D. Bakshi, Raja Faisal is losing his shirt tonight. And why don't you give him why don't you give him some information and some knowledge about how things work in India versus how things work in Pakistan?
Especially how democracy works
India
in
is a
India.
vibrant, functional democracy. For the last, sir, this is a debate going on, not a lecture. Thank you. Let some of us also contribute. Okay, as I was saying, India is a functional democracy as opposed to Pakistan, where almost for 30 years it has been ruled directly by the military, and in the other periods the military has ruled by proxy, by a facade, a democratic facade, by selected leaders like Taliban Khan, Imran Khan, you know, and they have been controlling the entire functioning of a country. In other countries, the country has an army. In Pakistan, the army has a country. So I feel very sorry for these Pakistani discussants when they come here and wax eloquent on democracy. Talk of anything else, just leave democracy alone. I wish you could have tasted what true democracy is. But your armed forces have never allowed you, your army especially has never allowed you to, you know,
I have serious reservations on it.
Why don't you check your own democratic credentials? And let me get in Colonel RSN Singh. Colonel RSN Singh, आज जब मोदी जी ने कहा, and he said it very clearly at the UNGA podium, that there are countries that use extremism and regressiveness as a political tool, and terrorism, and Pakistan comes in that category.
Like
and how Afghanistan is going to be used is not lost on anybody. I want to ask you, Colonel RSN Singh, Mr. Raja Faisal has no answer to the 3 questions I asked him.
Yes.
Osama bin Laden कहाँ मिला? सईद सलाउद्दीन का एड्रेस क्या है? हाफिज सईद का एड्रेस क्या है? अजमल कसाब किसने भेजा? What about he cannot answer these questions? Why don't you tell him the facts of the case? Because we in India, बच्चा बच्चा जानता है.
So the Prime Minister, he clearly said, you know, that terrorism, you know, bites the hand that feeds. And it's already happening in Pakistan. The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan people who were let out from the Bagram jail are already demanding Shariat to be implemented in Pakistan. And they are not wrong. They are absolutely not wrong, because Pakistan is an Islamic country where the tenets of Quran reign supreme. So they are only asking, you know, what is, you know, enjoined in the constitution, and they don't have the courage. This gentleman who is from Pakistan, ask him what are his reservations in implementing Shariat in Pakistan, which they advocate in Afghanistan with regard to Taliban. So therefore, if you have two sets of...
Let me enlighten you.
Sir, कितने लोगों के हाथ काटे हैं? नहीं, कितने लोगों के हाथ काटे आपने? वो तो कह रहे हैं कि हम आज भी उन्होंने 4 को कितने लोगों के हाथ काटे हैं सर? कितने लोगों का सर कलम किया है? नहीं, आप तो फिर either you say either.
Isn't Saudi Arabia the same
No,
country?
I have no problems.
Chief of Army
I have
Staff
absolutely no problems.
Seeks military
As
diplomacy.
far as I am concerned,
December last year, I'm talking about.
I have.
Your Prime Minister goes there and gets the highest civil award from them.
I have absolutely no problems. I have absolutely.
You given me a lecture on democracy, but when it comes to Indians going into the countries like Saudi Arabia, going into countries like UAE and elsewhere, you never talk about democracy, do you?
Tell me.
What kind of democracy lectures are you giving me here?
Tell me democracy to the world. What we are saying is we don't need you to teach us what democracy is. हमारे देश में फल फूल रही है. आप बाकी दुनिया से OIC में जाकर डिस्कशन कीजिए. क्यों नहीं डेमोक्रेसी है वहाँ? क्यों नहीं कर रहे वो? और ओमर अल्ताफ साहब, मैं आपसे पूछना चाहती हूँ, डेमोक्रेसी की बातें करते हैं आप. आपको बता दूं, out of the 75 years of India's independence, we have had democracy throughout. And what happens in Pakistan? 33 years out of these 75 years, you have had a dictator rule. 58 to 71, 71 to 88, 1999 to 2008. आप हमें डेमोक्रेसी का लेक्चर देंगे?
Yet we never had a golden temple. Yet we never had a Gujarat riots.
आपके यहाँ तो क्या हो रहा है आपको भी नहीं खबर है.
एक मिनट. You had a
Lal Masjid.
Never had any party.
You had a Lal Masjid and you also had 122 children being shot in a school.
1 minute.
Navika, let me respond, please.
That
Let me
was
respond.
your country working overtime.
एक मिनट.
Please let me respond, please.
Navika ji.
Navika, you asked me a question and now let me respond, please.
Can I come in, please?
I'm coming to you, RSN Singh,
You need to moderate
just
this
after
debate.
Omar Altaf. Quickly, Omar Altaf, make your point.
Navika, you were trying to refresh my history. Let me remind you that India is the only democracy in the world which has elected a mass murderer as its prime minister.
You know, this is unacceptable.
Well, this
You
is
should be mindful of that as well.
Omar
terrorists,
Altaf, are you a certification authority? आप अपने सूरत हाल देखिए, आप अपने सूरत हाल देखिए. हाँ, कोई पनामा में फंसा हुआ है, कोई टेररिस्ट के गले लगा हुआ है, कोई रोज कोई असामा को मार्टर कहता है, कोई UNGA पे जाने से पहले ISI और आर्मी से डिक्टेशन ले रहा होता है, फोटो कोई पंचशीर में जाके वहां भांगड़ा कर रहा होता है. आप तो रहने दीजिए. RSN सिंह साहब आपको जवाब देंगे, आपके मतलब का जवाब देंगे. RSN सिंह साहब,
Yes or no? Isn't Modi a mass murderer?
इसका
Yes or no?
से बात कर.
जैसे कोई कान में
बात कर.
somebody goes and I'll reply this fellow. बात सुनिए. मैं 1953 anti-Ahmadiyya riots. That is where, you know, the Pakistan army, it tasted blood. Ask him whether any riots, anti-Ahmadiyya riots, when the army was controlling whole of Pakistan, particularly Lahore, the area of Lahore. 1 minute, sir. 1 minute, sir.
State wasn't involved in it.
Sir, this is no way to debate. अरे यार तुम्हारा इतना you are so incoherent. You are totally incoherent.
RSS.
You are incoherent like some of the, you know, what should I say, some of the scriptures. No, you are totally incoherent. What I am saying is that please read the history of Pakistan. How did the army actually taste blood? It was during 1953 anti-Ahmadiyya riots. That is where they felt that yes, we can usurp power. दूसरी बात, आप बात कर रहे हैं, ये किसी को मास मर्डर बोल रहे हैं. अरे सैमुल हक सेमिनरी, जहाँ से आपकी पूरी हकानी ग्रुप निकलती है, बेनाजीर भुट्टो का असैसिनेशन कहाँ प्लान हुआ था? इट वाज सैमुल हक सेमिनरी, जहाँ से आपका पूरा हकानी ग्रुप निकला है. ठीक है? एंड नॉट फार फ्रॉम हकानी ग्रुप एक जगह थी तक्षशिला. आपको कुछ मालूम है पाकिस्तान के बारे में? वहां से एक स्क्रॉल है, आप लंदन म्यूजियम में जाके देख लीजिएगा. 1880 की एक स्क्रॉल है, बकसाली स्क्रॉल. उसमें उसमें मैथमेटिक्स के क्वेश्चंस हैं, वो भोजपत्र में है. ठीक है, हिंदी में बात कर रहा हूँ और आपको हिंदी समझ में आती है. ये मत बोलना कि मुझे केवल उर्दू समझ में आती है.
RSN सिंह साहब, इन्होंने I'm running out of time, but मैं ये कहना चाहती हूँ कि इन्होंने तो अपने भाइयों को नहीं छोड़ा. तो इन्होंने तो बांग्लादेश बनवा दिया.
वही मैं कह रहा हूँ, वही मैं सर. The tragedy is that Pakistan was created on the basis of Urdu language, and it was
It exploded. It exploded under the weight of the Urdu language. ये क्या आदमी ये बकवास कर रहा है? दूसरी बात, democracy is intrinsic to India. Don't say 70.
उस पढ़ाई में RSN सिंह जी, I need your indulgence because I have to conclude this debate. And उस पढ़ाई में मैं बताती हूँ इनकी ABCDE कैसे पढ़ाई जाती है. A to Z भी बता सकती हूं, लेकिन समय कम है, इसलिए A फॉर आतंक, B फॉर बिगेट्री, C फॉर कार्नेज, D फॉर डिक्टेटरशिप एंड दहशत, E फॉर एक्सट्रीमिज्म. ये है पाकिस्तान के स्कूलों में जो पढ़ाया जाता है, पाकिस्तान की आवाम को जो पढ़ाया जाता है. इस देश के साथ क्या करना चाहिए? मजबूरी है, पड़ोस में रहते हैं, लेकिन आज Prime Minister Modi has given them an absolutely direct message, and the message is not lost on the world. Pakistan will have to get its act together, and the world will have to recognize that Pakistan and Afghanistan can't be allowed to carry on their manufacturing of this factory of terror. Thank you very much to my panelists for joining me. Taking a very, very short break at this time. On the other side, we're playing out for you, our viewers, the Prime Minister's entire speech at the UNGA earlier today. Don't go anywhere.
The News Hour Special Edition.